It is April 3rd of 2025. Dramatic lighting today. How about that? Oh, will there be shadows? I'm Phil. This is book number 4 down in the 100 book challenge. You know the 100 book challenge. I am going to read, I have challenged myself to do so, 100 of the physical, actual paper books that I own and have not yet read before I buy any more books. This only just started last month, and I'm already 4% of the way there, so I'm feeling really jazzed up. So, what was the book that I finished? It was Doc Savage, number 4, The Polar Treasure by Kenneth Robeson. Kenneth Robeson, I don't think, look, yeah, it's like there's the author's name, like, wee in the corner there, because it really didn't matter, because Kenneth Robeson was a house name for the original publisher of the Doc Savage stories back in the 30s, which came out in magazine form. And the guy who actually wrote this is the great Lester Dent, who is really just this sort of pulp fiction maestro, wrote a ton of stuff, but really was most famous for being Kenneth Robeson, one of the Kenneth Robesons, and the primary Kenneth Robeson of the Doc Savage magazine series. He was writing about 60,000 word novel, right? Every single month. It shows in the writing of these books. But, okay, so this is the 4th. I'm reading them in this order, the Bantam books order, which is not the exact order that they were originally published in. This was published in the June 1933 issue of Doc Savage magazine that looked like that. This was the Bantam edition, really from the 70s. Mine in particular is the, looks like, 3rd printing from July 1972, right? And these Bantam editions, this was first published in 1963. So this is already going way back, right? 60 years on a 92-year-old story. Right? And of course, you see every year of those 92 years in terms of just sort of the approach to everything about the sort of the way, like the sort of social norms, we'll call it that. All this sort of just base level racism, systemic sexism, it's all there on display. In this case, maybe a little bit less. There's some, let's just say, less than robust, less than fair treatment of the Inuit people. But again, you have to think of novels as historical documents as well. Any novel. This isn't just an adventure story that was published in this form, right? That this book came out in 1972, so we're talking about 1972. No, this book is something that was written in the America of 1933, which is a radically different America, even if there are people who are trying to make us be 1933 again. Let's not get started. So this is, I'm reading these in order. So this is the 4th of the Doc Savage books I've read. This is my favorite so far. And this is good because I have to admit, I've been collecting all these books and kind of starting to lose faith in, do I really want to read like 100 and something of these? There's really a lot of them. Which shows there, a few were written by other authors besides Lester Dent, but if you know, for authors out there, it's NaNoWriMo, which is over and fine, but plus 10,000 words every month, and then it's immediately published. Like, not something that I would necessarily recommend, but this was the job that Lester Dent had, right? He was just an author sort of employee almost. And it was just, you got to have it, you got to have it. It's got to be exactly on time. It's got to be there. And you can see all of that in action here. It is tragically overwritten. The rule of Kenneth Robeson is Don't say in 4 words what could be stretched to 40. It's sentences that are so convolutedly long, padded, right? In some cases, compound words split into 2. You can just see him saying, I just need this, I need to get to 60,000 words, and I don't care how I do it. I'm just getting there. Meanwhile, though, a really fun adventure story was had by all, or anyway, was had by me. In this one, Doc gets involved in the always just sort of like randomly happens upon this mystery in which he meets this blind violinist who is the lone survivor of a ship that went down in the Arctic. And on that ship is the supposed $50 million treasure, right? In like gold and jewels, because it's the polar treasure. And some bad guys with great names. I mean, so just like Pulp Fiction names. Keelhaul de Rossi and Ben Ogard. Like, why? Are trying to, find this sunken ship or the lost ship and to retrieve that treasure. And somehow or another, in order to remember where it was, they tattooed a map onto the blind violinist's back that can only be seen with x-rays. This is a science fiction series, in case you were wondering. It's set in the present day, but Doc Savage has just like all of these miracle inventions. And so by definition, it's science fiction, right? Heavily weighted toward the fiction end of that ratio. And so anyway, Doc comes to the rescue because these guys, they're like trying to kidnap this blind violinist. That can't be good. And Doc Savage is a force for good. And then also starts thinking, hey, I could use the extra 50 million to set up more hospitals or fund my hospital, which he has this sort of rehabilitation hospital where all the bad guys he captures, he sends there to have their memories erased because he's the hero. And anyway, what more can you say about Doc Savage? The cover art, what, right? You've got a book called The Polar Treasure. Yes, Doc fighting the giant polar bear. I'm going to read a passage here for you. These are my reading glasses. Aren't they handsome? I buy them in bulk from Amazon. Don't judge me until you are as old as I am. So, in case, right, you were wondering if Doc Savage could beat a polar bear to death with his bare hands, here we go. Doc had fastened himself to the back of the animal. He clung there solely by the pinching power of his great leg muscles. Both his arms were free. He struck the polar bear just back of the small head. He slugged again, hitting a more vulnerable spot. Snarling horribly, the terror of the northern waste sank to the glacier. The animal had met more than its match. Doc could have escaped easily, but he did not. They needed food and a sleeping robe. Here were both. Doc's metallic fist pistoned a half-dozen more stunning blows. Shivering and snarling, the bear stretched out. Doc's mighty right arm slipped over the bear's head just back of the ears. It jerked. A dull pop sounded. A great trembling seized all the great white monster. The fight was over. Silence fell, except for the moan of the blizzard. Okay, so there you've got some idea of who Doc Savage is. He's the greatest. He's the greatest at everything. He's the greatest scientific genius. He's the strongest. There's also something that's interesting about Doc Savage books. We'll call it interesting. That you just have to go like, I get it. These were originally published in magazines that came out every month. And the publisher was, let's say, realistic enough to know that not necessarily everybody was getting it every month, reading it every month, reading it in order. So in order to make them as friendly as possible to new readers of Doc Savage, The thing, we are reminded of stuff. We're reminded of the hospital where he sends bad guys to have their memories erased. We're reminded of these things that he brushes gently across people's cheeks and knocks them out. All of his fun little weapons and stuff that he has. And then we are reintroduced to this crew of 5 guys who, sort of follow him. It's unclear as to whether they're kind of employees, friends. It's just his crew, right? And so we're sort of told who they are, and I mean told who they are in every single book, which is okay, right? I get it. Especially since I kind of read a bunch of stuff in between, and who knows. Characterization is thin on the ground for those guys, which is weird, right? It's Doc Savage can do all the jobs that they do better than them, but then they're all there to specialize in certain things, which is weird. But they tend to just kind of sub in for Doc, like he's over here doing that thing. They are left behind and they do that to sort of support him. They disappear and then reappear. And in this book, they disappear and reappear like along. So anyway, I won't give you any spoilers other than that he does kill the polar bear with his bare hands. Another thing to think about with Doc Savage, and this one in particular really got me thinking. The first 3 had this. I think they probably all have this. Which is a real, let's call it, what do we call it? Kind of homoerotic subtext. And by subtext, I mean like it's pretty shockingly blatant. Now, that's obviously not something that in 1933 a mainstream, right, mass market magazine is ever going to touch with a 10-foot pole. And so it's not. Doc is actually, again, in each of these books, we're reminded that he is effectively this asexual guy. He refuses to have any kind of relationship with the fairer sex because that's just going to get in the way of his adventuring. All right. You can't, have like the wife at home and then go to the North Pole and go mano a mano with a giant polar bear and do all the other stuff that he does, which is extremely dangerous. I mean, he's in like at least 2 plane crashes, right? And like is abandoned on an iceberg. I mean, this is like crazy stuff that he gets through here. But throughout, there's just all of these descriptions about how handsome and amazing and, strong he is, and his, incredible eyes and the bronze skin, and it's all just very like that. I don't know. I'm sure that there are still like old Doc Savage fans who are like, no, stop making everything gay, man. It's like, I'm not making everything gay. This is a little bit gay, which is fine. I'm okay with Lester Dent kind of going like, oh my God, this guy is just like, oh, forget it. Forget it. Doc Savage, the Polar Treasure. I got caught up in this story. The plot twists were there. Doc was definitely all front and center. Just crazy twists and turns in search for the lost ship with the treasure on it. Fantastic. So we've talked about my sort of reading scheme and what happens with these longer series that I'm going through, and I've cycled through stuff, right? So I go from Doc Savage to, in this case, an Ace Double. So these are my Doc Savage books, the not yet complete Doc Savage books. Right behind my head, my almost complete Ace Doubles. So though this is literally a series, one character follows through. Ace Doubles were really a line, to use the correct publishing terminology, from Ace Books. But I'm calling it a series because these are series and or kind of collections, I guess, right? I make up my own rules. I'm in charge of me. You're not the boss of me. You're not trying to be the boss of me. So, Ace Double. I feel bad as a science fiction fan. Where am I going with this? as a science fiction, I was blocking the microphone too. Probably you couldn't hear me. Hello, hello. Professional filmmaking in action. I feel like I should by now have read something by Doris Patricia, and the fact that I have, I think, at least a couple ace doubles by her. This one I kind of pulled out like, hey, there's some that you can see are kind of leaning down. Do I have any that you can see? Probably not. There's some there, whatever. That I picked out and said, get to these sooner. This is one of them, Mr. Justice by Doris Patricia. And then on the other side, don't you love how these? Oh, ace doubles, the best. Hierarchies by John T. Philippant. So this is next up in that order of the reading scheme. Currently reading 8 books. And who knows if that might go back to 9. Probably not. Well, let's see. But this is the series read, Mr. Justice and Hierarchies. This has been episode number 4, book number 4 of the 100 book challenge. I'm Phil. Do all this stuff, right? Subscribe, like, comment. Are you a Doc Savage fan? Do you want to argue with me about some of this stuff? I mean, go ahead. But I mean, I've read 4 of these now.